I've seen people say like, oh, well, they worked overseas. It's not tangible experience. I've seen it on the military side too. I used to get in fights all the time with hiring managers that would be like, well, it's international. It doesn't count. Or, oh, it's military. It doesn't count.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Confluence, where we explore communication at the boundary of language and culture. Today, I'd like to welcome Angela Buccellato to the show. Angela and I are new friends. We met a couple of months ago. We were introduced by our marketing guru, who felt that we should meet because we have a lot in common. We connected on the level of Italy. I immediately asked her, do you speak Italian? Because of her last name. And she said no, but she wants to. Mm-hmm. We connected on the level of travel and also clean juice. We like to eat clean food. The other thing she loves is the fact that I pronounce her name with Italian inflection, Buccellato, which almost sounds a little bit like gelato. Our mutual friend, Nick, thought that we should connect because of the fact that we both do work with non-native English speakers in our work. Angela, in her current incarnation, is a job coach, job search coach, career coach, resume writer, and many of her clients are non-native English speakers. So when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to meet and we have to chat. The first thing I'm going to ask Angela to do on the show today is to introduce herself. Just give us a little bit of background, tell us who you are, and we will go from there.
Well, Barbara, thank you for having me. I am honored to be here, and I'm really excited for this. I get that all the time that my last name sounds like gelato, so that's how people remember it. I love it. But just right. But just a quick background on me. Graduated from Penn State University. I got a degree in industrial organizational psychology. I waited a little too long to look for jobs, and I fell into defense recruiting, where I had helped transitioning military veterans find work, identified that there was this need in the market where veterans don't know how to write resumes, given a lot of bad information and everything in between. First gig in recruiting, which was very interesting. Have 5,000 stories to say about that. But I then went on to work into technical recruiting and a few other jobs where I realized like, okay, nobody really knows what they're doing. And you're never really taught that in college. I mean, I went to a Big Ten school and this was like, oh, just put a resume together, do this and do that. And it's like a one size fits all. And that's not the case. I mean, it depends on your job, your career, your history, and everything in between. And actually in 2019, I got fired from my job on my way back from Italy. So that was nice little punch to the gut there, but came home, got fired, and said, let's see if my side business of the resume rescue will sink or swim. And here we are today we helped about 800 clients last year. Big followings on social media, and I have a team adding a third employee even starting Monday. So it's been very exciting, and yeah, get to meet great people like yourself, and we've just been doing it.
That is so interesting that you kind of came to what you do now from this whole recruiting space. So you really understand the recruiting side of it, which allows you to very much help your clients navigate, I guess I would say, this process.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the range of services you offer? You don't have to necessarily tell us everything, because I know you do a lot of different things. But if a job searcher comes to you, or someone who's like is in that career change place, what can you help them with?
I offer a variety of services and kind of just like a look into my life, whether it's somewhat like from resume writing, career coaching, interview preparation, job search assistance, networking on LinkedIn, building your business without spending an arm and a leg. Because I mean, just to start over, I mean, again, you're never taught resumes or anything. Or I have a lot of clients right now, if we're going to say anything positive about the pandemic, of like, this job is not worth my health, worth my time. This bad boss is just like not worth me to not have a work-life balance. So a lot of people are coming to me and being like, I don't know, like, is this career switch right? I mean, I had a client last night who she's telling me she wants this government job. She's worked in government her whole career. And she's like, oh, I want another one. And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting that from you, that you actually do. Like, you're not excited about it. And she's kind of like, with me on the phone. And I was like, what do you like outside of work? Like, she's like, well, this and that. And I convinced her, I'm like, you need to go into more. She loved literature, arts, like completely different creative side, where government is a lot of like the same tasks every day because you have to be as the government. But that was just an example of someone that I said, I'm like, you can do this job. Like, just a lot of people don't know the career options. I mean, you go to college. I didn't know what supply chain was going into college till I graduated. I was like, what is this? But I wish I would have. So really what I pride myself on, and anyone that knows me or follows me on any social media knows this, is that I pride myself on my honesty, where I can give you tips and tricks. I can tell you any walk of life I've witnessed. I've faced discrimination in the workplace from being a woman. I've faced getting fired and living paycheck to paycheck. I've faced, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I mean, every aspect, or the imposter syndrome of like, oh my God, I'm going to start a business. Like, this is going to fail. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, there's no way this is going to be possible. But I bring that energy and honesty. And I always say, like, I'm a candidate therapist and I'm everyone's biggest cheerleader. And I truly like embody that, because it's like, what would you want to see if you were on the other end? That's how I operate. You're not just another number to me. Like, I've had clients turn into friends that will stand up in my wedding one day, which is kind of weird to say, but it's true. So I just love that. But
that's very cool. That's very cool. And I feel the genuineness of how you say that and how into it you are.
Thank you.
And I do think that people probably get more than they bargained for when they hire you, yes, but in a good way, in an absolutely good way. So let's switch the conversation a little bit toward this audience of the non-native English speakers who are looking for jobs. I'm sure there are lots of them who feel that they need help. There are lots of phases in the process. So you mentioned resume writing. You mentioned this whole thing of interacting with recruiters, which I think is challenging for anyone. That interview process, which I'm sure makes people whose first language isn't English really nervous.
Yes.
What do you find that they struggle with the most and maybe come to you? What do they come to you?
So one of the biggest things I see is people that have international experience, and an international resume is 1000% different than a resume in the United States, where internationally in some countries it's list your date of birth, list your marital status, kids, like all these things that are very discriminatory in the United States, but that's the go-to. And it's not on the basis of discrimination overseas. It's more so get to know the person. It's very interesting. So one of the biggest problems they face is they're like, well, I'm not getting any traction. I'm like, well, you have on your resume, you have 5 kids and you're married and you list your age and everything. And people can say what they want, but age discrimination does exist in the workplace. And that's the number one thing. A lot of recruiters need to realize too, when English is not someone's first language, if they have like a sentence that doesn't make sense, it's, again, English is not their first language. So where I come in is I always like to have conversations with people, to write the resume, to do career coaching, interview prep, whatever. And I'll dictate everything and make sure I understand. So one of my favorite clients, she is absolutely lovely, and Spanish was her first language, and half of her resume did not make sense. I was like, I work automotive and I don't understand what you're even talking about. And that's where I came from recruiting. But once we got on the phone, she explained it. And I'm like, is this what you mean? And she's like, oh, yeah. That's what I meant. So we ended up getting her a better job, a higher paying job. She had that confidence in her to negotiate the salary she deserved. And now she sent me so many referrals of individuals in the Metro Detroit area that English is not their first language, from people she knows, other organizations she's a part of. So I would say those two are the biggest things, or just not having the confidence of like, well, I know I'm good for and I know, Barbara, you and I have talked about this. Like, I know I'm confident. I know I can do the job, but I cannot convey that. And that's where I come into play with like interview prep and all of that types of services too.
It sounds to me like a lot of it does have to do with clarity, that like one of the things they really struggle with, maybe both in writing and in speaking, is using the language, using English in a way that is going to make sense to the person on the other end.
Right.
And then having the confidence obviously plays in there. I should think even more on the spoken end of things, the interviewing part than the written part. So some of what you do, it seems, is being a little bit of you have to clean up their grammar maybe.
Yes.
And I know on resumes, you always want the line items to start with a verb. Mm-hmm. So do you also do work in getting consistency going in that resume?
Yes. So it's consistency. It's making sure everything sounds good. And what my favorite part of kind of the process is the initial consultation. I don't open the resume till I'm about to call them. So they get my organic, what I think of the resume, and feedback from that. Yes. So I never study it ahead of time. It's like, okay, if I was recruiting you, this is what I think, or I would never hire you because of these reasons. And I'm honest and I say it very respectful, but those are the big things, especially on the resume, is getting that clarity. And even for English speakers, I mean, and it's kind of interesting too. I witnessed this where I get people that English is not their first language and they always say sorry. It's always, I'm sorry, I'm working on my English. I'm sorry. And I'm like, you're very more eloquent than a lot of native English speakers. So stop saying sorry. And
you don't have to.
Right, exactly. And kind of going off of that is recruiters and hiring managers have to be, what's it called? Kind of patient with clients or candidates, because if they say, it's just waiting to find the right words. And it's not like an English speaker saying, like an after everything. It's different.
Right.
So
they have a reason.
Exactly. And that's something too, but.
Yeah, I get that totally. It's interesting because you and I both work with this idea of helping people be clear.
Right. And
I know one thing with my clients that I work on a lot is concision. It's like, how can we cut out words here and help people are going to get that message more clearly or quicker for sure if we simply have fewer words in the phrase or on the line item. Is cutting out words something you also deal with a lot?
Oh, yes. That is, it doesn't matter English speaker or not, that's my favorite. That's one of my favorite things I love doing is taking an 8-page resume and condensing it down to 2, or, oh, you already repeat. A lot of people don't realize they repeat themselves. So I'll read through it. I'll be like, you just said this 2 lines above. So scrap that. And my biggest feat was a 21-page resume. I got down to 4. So your girl works the magic here. Mm-hmm.
Do you mind sharing the culture of the person who had a 21-page resume?
He was an older gentleman and he just kept adding to it. He never, I mean, there was 2 pages I took off of stuff that was already on there and he just didn't realize it. So he just kept adding and adding. I mean, there was not even a space for another word on the page. It was so bad, but just reading through it and being like, okay, I don't care what you did, 40 plus years ago. It's not relevant.
Right.
Take it off.
Keep it relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a crazy one.
You and I recently referred someone to you who he's a native speaker of English. Mm-hmm. He's not a non-native speaker, but he is culturally diverse. He's got a different family background. One of the things that he was dealing with, which I found quite interesting, and I didn't really realize this happens, is that different recruiters he was working with were telling him to add stuff to his resume. And so his resume had become longer and more dense because these recruiters kept saying, well, you got to have this and you got to have that. Do you find that that's a common issue?
Just because someone's a recruiter does not mean they're a resume writer. So actually, my guest on my podcast this week he's a recruiter and he's like, you're not asking me resume stuff, right? I don't write resumes. I'm like, no, I know you don't. That's why I come into play. But I'm kind of a rare person that I have the recruiting background and a resume writer. So that's where people have to understand that is and everyone for whatever reason has an opinion about a resume, your career, anything of that sort. And they're not all right. I mean, I always tell people trust someone. If you're working with someone on your resume, make sure they worked in recruiting or they make sure they've worked in a hiring capacity. Because I have even competition on LinkedIn that, they have hundreds of thousands of followers and do really well, but they've never worked in recruiting. It's you have to trust someone that can tell you the behind the scenes. A lot of people can write resumes, but you can't always trust it. And I know with the person you were talking about, like someone had told him to add his internship from 20 years ago. No, absolutely not. Nobody cares that far away.
Right.
Even 5 years out of your internship. No.
That's what I kind of figured. So can you summarize, like if you're looking at a resume, like you said, you don't look at them until right before the conversation, but give us like 4 or 5 things that you could list that you often see that need to be changed.
A lot of times people there's so many pictures on the resume for sure. Never put pictures ever. It's an unconscious form of bias, and that's what LinkedIn's for. You can put a link to your LinkedIn, but we don't want, if people want to check you out online, just use your LinkedIn. Trying to think what else. Pronouns. So I do this, I do that, or talking in third person, like Mrs. Buccellato does this and that, and Miss Buccellato, like, no, I could, no, absolutely not. No third person ever. And then just like short points. So so for me, I'd put like, if I were to put like customer relations or revenue generation, but I don't give any meat to it, it's a waste of space, and I'm going to throw your resume right away. Okay. Let's see what else. What other good ones? People just go wrong with bad formats. So if your eye, and what I tell a lot of individuals too is like, have someone look at it and where is their eye drawn? If it's all over the place, that's not a good resume format. A lot of times it's just as simple as like change the format and make sure it's clear what you're looking for. So people will have different types of jobs, but it's like, okay, well, what are you looking for next? You've been different industries.
So should that, what they're looking for, be at the top? Should, you see these resumes that have this looking for a position in, is that a good thing to put at the top? I
like to do a summary. So, we had the objective a few years ago where it was like, I'm looking for this position. I like to do a summary now. So the summary says I have, 15 years of experience in this. I am skilled at leading multifaceted, diverse teams. I'm interested in this. I'm skilled in that. This is what I'm looking for. So it's I see. So it's kind of like a formula.
And keep it to 3 or 4 lines, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I know that person that I sent you had, what you just said about just these words about all the things he could do, there were like 30 of them. I mean, 25, there were a lot. And I looked at that and I thought, well, how would you ever choose? How would you ever know what you would hire, why you would hire this person?
Right.
It seemed overwhelming and a bit confusing for sure.
And you can section them off. I like the word, like the terms on there, but there's ways it's not like a laundry list. It's just more of like hey, here's what I did in supply chain. Here's what I did for leading teams. Here's, things like that. So
another thing that was popular a few years ago, this just occurred to me, is what do they call it? It's not chronological. It's by area that you've worked in.
Functional, yes.
Is that a functional resume? Are those still in? Is that still something that recruiters or hiring managers want to see?
So it's changed a little bit where instead of it being like I would have a functional resume only because I own my own business and I have every possible thing down to IT I have to do because I'm a small business owner. So I would have a functional resume. So it makes sense for business owners, but for professionals looking, the thing recruiters want to see is where you did it. This is horrible to say. A lot of people lie on their resumes. I learned that the hard way. So if you just make a functional resume with a list of everything you're qualified for, I'm probably not going to hire you. I might call you and ask you to change it because I want to see like, okay, you won, best of class award. Well, where did you do that? Or, you know what I'm saying? So we want to see where.
They want to know where.
Exactly.
And in what job. I see. That's super interesting. And I do think that, so as American hiring managers, if we put ourselves in the shoes of, or the mindset of an American hiring manager, in your experience, what do they look for? What are they focused on the most?
They want someone that can work in a team setting, but also autonomously, that they don't have to babysit. So any of these like personality assessments or anything, what they're truthfully screening for is that you're this person that doesn't just run to your manager when something goes wrong. Like you can take the time to figure it out and then of course escalate it if needed. They also want to see someone that's going to fit well with their team. A lot of people do not realize this, but they hire on personality. I mean, if it comes down to candidate A with more experience and is the perfect fit on a resume, but is like a little lacking in personality that would fit with the team, but candidate B comes in with less experience, but is a better personality fit, a lot of times they're going to go with candidate B. So
wow. Is there a way to show that on your resume? Like, should you put your DISC profile on there, or how would someone indicate that?
So it's a lot of the verbiage on it too, where I say, like, mine, I love to say is that I'm a tenacious individual. I spearhead these things because I am this go-getter type individual. And I do have, like, I'm not afraid to present to the C-suite. I'm not afraid to get in front of groups of people. And I'm also one that, you know, I'm a people-focused leader. Like, I truthfully am. I offer this, I offer that, things like that. But there's verbiage you could put on it where there are, like, more developers, individuals that are, I don't want to say not leaders, but more behind a computer most of the day, that they're back-end employees. So instead, we would be, like, more process-driven, or we would say more problem solving, troubleshooting, things that are unique for that industry or for what they do, instead of someone that's like, okay, if I'm going to, this position is leading a team, I'm going to want people on it, but also I'm this tenacious leader that sticks up for my employees and makes sure everything gets done.
So it can actually maybe dampen your possibilities of getting a particular job if you're not really vocabulary focused, like looking for those keywords that are going to jump out at that hiring manager who's either looking for the leader or who is looking possibly for that more back-end type of position, a person for that type of position. So it's very language oriented. And I do think that's probably what non-native English speakers find difficult, is getting those words
for
right.
Sure.
Because they aren't always obvious. And possibly they're not obscure, but words that they wouldn't necessarily
job
know,
descriptions are stupid. I wish there was a one size fits all. Looking for a job is a pain in the butt. Like, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But let alone throwing in that English isn't your first language, because some of these companies use this language. I had a client the other day. I'm like, I couldn't even tell you what they're looking for. Like, this language was so far. And I've written job descriptions for a living, and I'm just like, I couldn't even tell you. They don't even know what they want. And that happens a lot.
And that's probably something to become aware of and learn how to identify when you're reading job descriptions or job search. What do you call those? Ads. We used to call them ads, because you could immediately eliminate some of them because you're just like, well, I obviously don't know what they're looking for.
I mean, I even say, I'm like, reading some of these jobs, read like another language, let alone if English is another language for you.
Wow, that's amazing. Another thing you mentioned to me that I found interesting is that recruiters can sometimes enact behavior or say things that actually are fairly discriminatory. Can you tell a story or two about that?
So, had a recruiter I worked with at one of my previous jobs, and she wouldn't call people if she couldn't pronounce their name. Doesn't matter if they were U.S. citizens or not. And the problem where this is discriminatory is, like you talked about, that client you sent me, he's U.S. citizen. Speaks perfectly fine English, but his name doesn't look like it. So people may say, oh, well, you're going to need sponsorship. We're not going to hire you. And it happens before they even read it. Before they even make a phone call. Or I've seen people say, like, oh, well, they worked overseas. It's not tangible experience. I've seen it on the military side too. I used to get in fights all the time with hiring managers that would be like, well, it's international, it doesn't count. Or, oh, it's military, it doesn't count. Like,
it's so amazing they'd have that mentality.
It's sickening. Yep, I've had that. I'm trying to think what other good ones that are just horrible, because there's so many horrible stories about it. But,
well, the one you just mentioned, the guy that I connected you with, who his name is from the Middle East, but he was born in Dearborn. He's a U.S. citizen. He went to University of Michigan. You know, for people like that, should they put U.S. citizen on their resume? Or, I mean, that would seem discriminatory in and of itself.
I've had people do that. I mean, they ask you with a lot of applications, like, what's your citizenship status? And with some of them, like, when you worked government, you have to be a U.S. citizen or green card holder. So I understand that. But just to be outward and just not call someone because of this, I mean, that that coworker did not belong in recruiting or any people focused role based on who she was. But it's disgusting how things work. And I don't know how.
Well, I mean, let's look at your name, Angela Buccellato. I could make the assumption that you're Italian because of your name, but you're not. So, but I my sense is that with some nationalities and types of names, the bias is stronger than with others, probably.
And a lot of companies, like more of the larger enterprise companies, do bias training, which is great. But a lot of the smaller companies don't ever. And that's something that needs to be implemented if you're in a hiring capacity. I mean, I've been told people, they're not going to fit in our environment, which is we don't like who you are as a person. Little backlash there. Or I would have hiring managers come up to me and say, this is the type of person we're looking for, and hire this type of like younger person or this certain individual. It's like you can't.
So it's built into their mindset in a way. The bias is built in a way. That's really incredible. The one last thing that I think we could touch on in our conversation is this idea of things that you hear when your clients come back to you after an interview about what the interview was like for them and what maybe the hiring managers struggle with when they're interviewing these types of candidates. Can you share a little bit of information about that?
It all comes down to the communication piece of, again, this diversity training needs to happen across organizations if you're hiring or promoting people. But the benefit of when clients of mine like that are non-native English speakers get promotions, I don't want to say easier, but it is, because they already have like established who they are as individuals. But even then, their biggest problem, confidence, is a lot of problems. Yeah, I give so many pep talks. I just had one last week, and she is an engineer, and she is one of the, I would say probably the most impressive engineer I've met, just like her background, building up clients and everything. And I'm like, you have to have confidence in yourself. I'm looking over here like, wow, you are so impressive. I'd hire you in a second. And that's where it's not so much the practice, it's the confidence. Because if you're not confident in your own abilities, why would I be confident in hiring you? That's the big thing. So what they come back and say is that it's not as scary as they think, or, oh my gosh, the number one thing is like, I don't know if I conveyed my experience well.
I think the other thing, we know that some nationalities, some cultural groups, and the language, they can be long talkers. Because in their language, you use more words and you put more context. And in the US, we basically want to hear enough background that the rest of it makes sense. So you have to contextualize for the person. Like if somebody's talking about their experience, they would want to give a certain amount of information about how they got that experience or the context in which they got, where they worked, kind of thing. However, I think the lack of patience comes in because they might not know when to stop. They might not know when to let that other person come into the conversation and ask a question, a clarifying question, or, tweak that information in some way. And I can imagine that is challenging for some
I mean, my family, I have family in Italy. I'm half Italian here, but I don't speak the language, but we grew up that it was you talk over each other. And I know you and I talked about this too, but you talk over each other and you just are long-winded, and it's only quiet when everyone's eating. That's still true with any gathering, anything with my family, but that's where it's offensive. I mean, I witnessed that when I went to college, even being a native English speaker, I'm like, oh, people stop talking when I talk over them. I need to stop doing that because I didn't want to come off as rude to people I was just meeting. But things like that happen all the time, or just like, it just comes down to understanding each other's cultures. Like people come here from all different walks of life, and it's great. I mean, I feel like certain companies that have locations overseas or in other countries are more lenient because they prefer someone that English is not their first language, that they can, talk to the Mexico plant, talk to the Germany plant, and make sure everything's aligned. Right. But that's not the case in all of them. We have a long way to go in hiring as a whole. It's horrible, horrible process for some. And I don't have solutions for it, but everyone should have to go through this diversity training. And as more people of the certain age range are retiring that are not open to change, I feel it's going to get better, but we still have years and years to go.
Well, that's interesting. One of the things that was occurring to me is that oftentimes the problem is nonverbal behavior as opposed to what they actually say. Like that impatience will show up in your face, or the fact that you've discounted somebody already in the conversation will show up on your face. I think people's tone changes when they've made it up in their mind, this isn't the candidate. This isn't going to be the one. And that person picks up on that. And all of a sudden, their face falls, or they realize that somehow something hasn't gone well. So I'm sure a lot of that goes on.
Oh, it does. And even like the big thing of masking, like I have not a naturally nice face, like welcoming face, but you can tailor that to people you're interacting with, like things like this. But my face naturally is not welcoming and it looks like I'm bored. So that's just like a good example.
Well, I have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing that wealth of information. Is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up? Or you could tell people how they can find you?
I do the most on LinkedIn. So you get a lot of great pieces of information from me on LinkedIn. Just Angela Buccellato, which, yes, I know you'll have to copy and paste that because my last name's long. But LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, TikTok. I do a podcast every week that Barbara was on, actually. So we're just doing everything here. But anyone that is not sure what next steps to do, I do offer free consultations. I will promise to tell you the truth. You do not have to work with me, but please just talk to a recruiter or someone that has hired that can tell you the truth and not anyone, your friend, family, whoever. But no, and thank you for having me. This was fun.
Well, you're very welcome. I think the parting word there is truth is important, but it's all often difficult to figure out what's true, right? It's not always an easy task for sure, but your experience is so obvious. And also the fact that you do provide that objective point of view, I think is super valuable. That's really something that people should come to you. A reason why, and of course, Angela has also been, you can tell the generational difference here because she's on all those platforms and I'm pretty much on LinkedIn. That's where I hang. I would like to thank our audience today for listening and watching. If you've enjoyed it, please tune in on YouTube, give it a like. We're also on Spotify, so you can find us there. Subscribe to the channels. That's also a great way to find out who's coming up next. If you'd like any help in improving your communication, especially for your job, getting better at persuasion and leadership communication, head on over to boldtglobal.com. That's where you can find a lot of information, some interesting articles and blogs, and how to book a free 30-minute call with me. Thank you very much e ci vediamo la prossima volta. We'll see you next time.